Welcome to Build. I'm Laura Haywood. Today we get to do one of my favorite things, dig deep into a brilliant work of theater by one of America's greatest playwrights. In 2017, Lincoln Center Theater produced Pipeline, a world premiere play by Dominique Morisseau about a public school teacher named Naya, the son she sends to private boarding school, and the systems of education, oppression, and family structure that they both seek to transcend. LCT's Pipeline just concluded a successful run in cinemas, and we have a very exciting announcement coming up about how you can see it too. I'll be joined by Karen Pittman, Namir Smallwood, and Morocco Omari in just a moment. First, here's a look at Pipeline.
Tell me what devil got into your hands, made you attack your teacher.
You don't understand, Ma.
Make me.
They're not going to be lenient with a third strike.
He said he didn't slam that teacher, but on the video it looks like
the video.
If it goes viral, I'm a rap.
He'll be a celebrity.
I'll be public enemy #1. You broke protocol.
There is no protocol in war. Go! Get the nurse now!
Got a bunch of parents, teachers, politicians, whoever, trying to understand these kids. How are you gonna understand a book you only skimming?
Tell me how to save you. Tell me how to give you another life. Tell me what would take this failure away. Morning, class.
Welcome to Build.
Hey. Thank you.
How does it feel watching that clip of this play that you did a year ago?
Well, that's one of the entry to this play is actually one of my favorite moments with the audience, because oftentimes I would say, "Good morning, class," and the audience would sort of spontaneously respond, and it was always unexpected. You know, the set of the play was a classroom at certain points, and it was always interesting to have the audience respond like students, and they'd talk to the back to the stage, and so it's a lot of fun to watch it, especially in the format it's in right now.
Yeah, the filmed version is, well, it was filmed at the theater live, and then it spent a few days in a very successful run in cinemas, and we have an exclusive announcement right now about the fact that there is an opportunity for anyone who wants to see this on screen. Namir, do you want to break the news to the world?
Well, Pipeline can be streamed live on BroadwayHD.com.
Right.
So please, please, everyone, stream. I think this play will speak to a lot of your lives.
You see, Namir is putting on a master class right now. He's like thinking on the line, and he's just, just his natural thing. He's a bad boy.
Yeah, the great part about it is streaming internationally. So this story is going to be told around the world, which is very exciting for us as actors. It's an important story, I think, about what we deal with in America as far as the school-to-prison pipeline, but it's certainly important for what reflects upon our living as African Americans in America. And I think that that's really important for that story to find its way to every corner of this earth.
So quick clarification, the streaming will be available at 1 p.m. Eastern today, so that's about an hour from now for those watching live.
About an hour.
And we have this exclusive announcement. The rest of the world will officially find out at 1 o'clock when the streaming becomes available. Morocco, can you give us a spoiler-free synopsis of this play?
A spoiler? I can't give a
Spoiler-free.
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 Yeah,
oh,
a spoiler-free synopsis.
No. I wish I could. Karen, I'm sure you can.
Spoiler-free synopsis. The play is about a family who is dealing with children, specifically a woman named Naya Joseph, who is dealing with her son who goes to a private boarding school, who has gotten into a difficult situation with a teacher at the school. And his journey as a child is being threatened because he might end up in the juvenile delinquent charges brought against him, et cetera, which is part of the conversation that we have in this country about the school-to-prison pipeline, how children can be led directly into prison. So they're grappling with it. The story is about not just about the mom and the son, but it's also about the character that Morocco plays, the father of the son, the school that the mom teaches at, and all of her colleagues in the school. what we grapple with in our schools and our educational system in America. And what I think Dominique does so well is that we talk about the emotional ups and downs of a community grappling with how to keep their children safe and secure in this world. And so it's a really important story.
That was excellent. See, it can be done.
Spoiler-free synopsis.
Anything you want to add?
No, she said it. All.
Great.
We defer to Karen.
So Dominique has written a lot of plays that are based in urban landscapes, specifically in Detroit, although this one does not mention, as far as I know, exactly
No, it
what
just
city.
says inner city urban.
I got the feeling that this show was placed in Chicago because of a couple of pieces of literature that are referenced throughout. Native Son, which is a Chicago story.
Absolutely.
And then there's also a poem that figures very heavily into
By
the
Gwendolyn
play.
Brooks, right?
And that is also she's also a Chicago poet.
Yeah.
So for those things are clues to me that perhaps this is Chicago.
Yeah, I think it really could be anyway, but I think you're right because Dominique comes from Detroit. The story is based upon her experience in schools, Detroit public schools, and her mother's experience. The character that I portray, Nia Joseph, is based on the playwright's mother and her life and her experience in a lot of ways. So.
Do you know if her mother's living? And
She absolutely is alive.
is she?
Yes.
Was she part of your research at all? Did you spend time
You
with
know,
her?
my mother was a teacher. My father was a science teacher, and in the play, there's a fantastic science teacher. His name is
Mr. Peterson.
Mr. Peterson, and my father was also a science teacher that people loved. And Mr. Pittman was a great science teacher and what have you. But yeah, no, I was able to tap into that experience that I would see in my parents going out to school every day and doing their work and what they brought back from the students that they dealt with and their experiences from day to day. So I had a lot of fertile ground to help create this character.
Yeah. Speaking of that science class, one of my favorite quotes in the show is a description of your character, whose name is Omari, not to be confused with Morocco Omari. But Namir's character, Omari, is described as a lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that metaphor and how it helped shape your understanding of the character?
I think that, you know, lunar eclipses they're rare. You know, they're very rare. And Omari is a very rare, you know, human being, you know, in his development and how he's misunderstood. You know, people can't get, like, all sides of him at one time. And that's pretty much how I am personally. So it made a lot of sense to me, you know, and that was a great way to get into the character and get into who this person is and who he is to every character that he meets in this particular play.
It's a great lyricism that Dominique employs in the play. The characters who are teenagers in the play have such a great articulation of themselves and of their thoughts and their intentions that is unlike any story I've ever heard. The characters speak in poetry and lyricism like you would hear in an August Wilson play. I mean, she's been compared to some of the greatest African-American writers, but I think she's one of our great playwrights. In fact, she was just awarded with a MacArthur Genius Grant just a week ago, I think.
She's also one of the 3 top produced playwrights in America in 2018.
In 2018.
Yeah.
And of course, she wrote the book for an incredible musical that's coming on The Temptations in the fall of 2018. So she is she's at the top of her game. She's not a star on the rise. She's risen already, you know, and it's just a matter of time before you get to know her a lot better. But I will say one of the great parts about working with her is that she uses every aspect of your instrument, every aspect of your craft to make her story come to life. And that's a great privilege, a great joy to work with a writer like that.
She started as an actor and as a poet, and she has talked at length about how those 2 sort of previous incarnations of her own artistic journey have colored her experience as a playwright. She also has done some writing about being an audience member, and an experience she had as an audience member led her to write something called the Playwrights Rules of Engagement that was inserted in the playbill at Lincoln Center when this play was produced. Were you aware of those rules of engagement? And if so, can you give a description?
No, that's you, Karen. That's you.
Go ahead.
Well, during the play, I mean, we performed for school shows, like for kids, and there were some shows where, you know, it was a little raucous, you know, and you know, people kind of were like shushing the kids, and you know, it was a culture clash, I think.
Absolutely.
So basically, Dominique wrote like a rules of engagement of how to engage, you know, these kids who this may be the first play that they've had to see, you know, in their lives. You know what I mean? So, and it's something that speaks to them. So you can't police how these kids react. You can't police how people react to basically seeing themselves. You know, seeing their reflection on what's going on in their lives. So I thought that was interesting.
And I think a part of knowing Dominique as a playwright is knowing that she is speaking directly to her community. And in a lot of our community, we believe in the call and the response.
Right.
So if I say, hey, you're like, hey, girl, hey, you know what I mean? Like we engage with each other. And we certainly engage with the art that reflects us, as Namir was saying. So it was very important for there to be some engagement from the audience to give us feedback on where we were. And as long as it wasn't interfering with all of the storytelling, I have to say Morocco's character wasn't deeply loved by the end of the... They would talk back to him a lot.
So misunderstood.
So misunderstood. But it was great. It was very important to get that feedback night after night.
I loved opening the playbill and seeing something that said, for some of us, this is church and we have to testify.
Absolutely.
And I think that sometimes the shushing is more disruptive than the person who has a really organic vocal response to what they're seeing on stage. That's why we go to live theater, right? I mean, you don't want somebody talking to their neighbor.
Right.
But especially if you say, good morning, class, and
Right,
everybody around you says, good morning.
Right, exactly.
You don't want to be Eastern for that.
I think one of the great parts about this film, too, is that everyone who streams it on Broadway HD, in fact, it's available today at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. If you want to watch it, I suggest you do. Best 2 hours you're going to have today. You will see the audience responding in kind, going back and forth with us a little bit. It's a great part of the American theater tradition that you get to sit in a room, dark, and have an emotional, cathartic experience with a stranger right next to you. That is a part of the whole sacred church-like experience of going to the theater.
You know, and an interesting thing about actors on stage, we can feel you.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, even though there's a fourth wall, you know, like the quiet audience, you're like, are they with us? You know, but when you hear someone respond, you're just like, yeah, we got you.
A gasp or a breath.
We know we got you in certain parts or certain laughs. We're like, okay, they're with us. But when that audience, the matinee audiences, when they're quiet, you're like, are they awake out?
Are they sleeping?
Sunday matinee.
Sunday.
Well, I know Dominique worked very actively with Lincoln Center to try to change the demographics of who those audiences were.
That's absolutely right.
Subscription theaters often skew very heavily towards older, wealthy white people.
Right, sure.
And this play is about a young man of color and his family and struggles that might not be super familiar to that subscription audience.
Right. Well, and here's also the great thing about Dominique's writing that I want to highlight, because you're right in a lot of ways in the specific conversation about African Americans is the universal conversation that we all are the same. I mean, nobody in here wants to see their best friend or their brother or their son in a difficult situation. And I can't tell you how many people after the show would come up to me and say, hey, you know, I'm an Asian mom, I'm a white mom, I'm a black mom, I'm a Latina mom, but I understood every single emotion and feeling that you had and that your son had and that the dad had. And, do you know, it spoke to me specifically. You know, I think that there's a great, I think you might be surprised at how you see yourself in this story reflected.
It certainly is a story for everyone, and if there was ever an audience that needed it, perhaps it is that
I would agree.
subscription audience.
At Lincoln Center, absolutely.
Yeah.
How funny it was to walk in there and the trap music Kendrick Lamar was playing during the during the theater run. Kendrick Lamar is not on the streaming, but he was playing during the theater run, to have people in Lincoln Center come in and listening to, Kendrick Lamar, like, oh, we're not in Kansas anymore. This is so different.
I'm so excited for people to have the opportunity to see Pipeline on Broadway HD because it has all of the best elements of live theater and all of the best elements of cinema. There are clearly moments where the audience is in the frame, where you get that feeling of community. And then there are also moments where it seems like the cameras must have been on the stage with you, following your action, and then it's cut together with scenes from high schools and from communities. I don't know where those came from. They were not in the play when it was performed, but they give this atmosphere of what Omari is living and what Naya is living as a teacher in the hallways of these schools. Do you know how that decision was made to incorporate those and where they came from?
Well, Hannah was the projectionist on it, and what you're seeing is between scenes, you're seeing projected images of high school students, and with every projection, the scenes and the images get a little bit more violent, a little bit as the play moves forward, a little bit more casual violence, which you see all the time in the hallways of public schools. And there were cameras literally on stage. We filmed this the last few days of the run of Pipeline in August, in the beginning of August, and there were cameras on stage. There were times where we did the play right in front of an audience, and the audience was filmed as well. It was comprehensive. I mean, we did the scenes over and over again as we could. It was just a really interesting experience, an amalgam of what the director Habib was doing for the film, for Live at Lincoln Center, and what the director Liliana Blaine Cruz actually did with the staging of it. It was an interesting amalgam of it, and I think that you guys are really going to get all the nuances of the storytelling and the behavior in the film in a good way.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that those projections were actually part of the stage show.
That's right.
The way they're incorporated as separate scenes in the editing for Broadway HD is, it gives this added texture to the production, and I'm so glad that those were included.
Yeah. For sure.
What does it mean to be revisiting a show that closed a year ago? Usually the thing about theater is you do it, it lives, and then you say goodbye to it and you move on to something else. Yet here we are, it now lives forever. What does that mean to you as a theater actor? You want to go first?
What does it mean? Watching yourself on stage is a different thing than watching yourself in film or TV. So it's like you're projecting, you're doing this, you're doing that, and you're just like, but seeing it when we saw it, it was like, oh, it's good, okay, cool. They caught the tear, so
The tear.
you know what I mean? But
Single tear.
yeah, right, the single one Denzel tear in glory. But it's one of those things where, you're trying not to be overcritical of your work. So it's kind of like, okay, all right, that's cool, let it live, whatever. But, like Karen said, Dominique, she gives us these stories, and there's so much meat. All you have to do is show up and dig into it, you know what I mean? And it goes out into the audience, and it's just, you live in it. You have no other choice as an actor but to live in it and tell the truth,
It's a great joy. I'm on the stage a lot during Pipeline, so I never had actually seen the play Pipeline because I'm never. So I didn't know all of the humor and all of the funny moments that happen between the other characters on stage when I'm not there, because usually I'm in the back getting ready or what have you. One of the things that I appreciated from seeing the film is the great emotional dynamic that Dominique is so good at writing. It's essential to her storytelling that she navigates the emotions that African Americans go through. We go through so much on the day to day, Black men, Black mothers, Black sons, Black girls. We just navigate so much, and Dominique is like no other playwright, athletic in her ability to articulate the emotional world of African Americans in our community. And you don't realize how emotional you are until you were like leaning over in your seat and you're just trying to figure out what's coming up next. You know what I mean? It's amazing.
I wanted to, you gave, I love that description of Dominique as athletic.
In her ability to tell
And I
us.
want to share a compliment that she gave to you in an interview she gave. She said to play this master educator, she needed a master performer, and that you were at the top of her list.
Come on now. I'm gonna quit on that.
It's so clear. Like,
Or
you
retire.
embody this role so much that I didn't even recognize you when you walked into the studio today, because you and Naya have such different energies about you, and that is a sign of a truly masterful performer.
Well, you know, I have to give credit to Tasha Lawrence, who's in the cast, Jamie Lincoln Smith, Heather Velasquez, Namir Morocco. It was an ensemble effort. That play is a collaborative effort. The characters that we created were a collaborative effort with the playwright and with the director. So, you know, we helped each other along, and so I take my share of credit, but I do spread it out because we really worked hard as an ensemble on that show.
Namir, one of the things that I also have heard Dominique talk about is the idea of righteous rage and unexpressed rage, and how that defined the character of Omari. He is silent for a lot of the show, but it's almost like there's this buzzing energy of holding it in about him. I actually get a little bit of that from you as well. I don't know whether it's rage or whether it's something else, but it's one thing for an actor to have lines to perform. It's another thing for an actor to have an unspoken essence about them. And I'm wondering if you might talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, like this, Omari was a gift to me because I've had, you know, similar experiences in private school growing up. And just walking around as a young black man, you know, here in America, you have every right to be, you know, rageful, you know. Yeah, there's an undercurrent, you know, just in my personal, you know, life, you know what I mean? Because there are things that I'm trying to figure out as a grown man that are hard, you know? It's kind of difficult, you know what I mean? When you have examples of a certain way and then you want examples of another way to deal with things, and, you know, I'm just a quiet person, and I just kind of suss out, you know, how can I be better, you know, a better person, a better man, a better son, a better brother, you know what I mean, a better artist, you know, and for me, it's interesting because art, to me, it's easy. For me, it's easy. It's the life stuff that is like, this is a little, this is a little difficult, you know what I mean? But that's just what it is.
Still waters run deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you read this role and go, this is mine?
I actually did a workshop in Chicago of this, and I read it, like we were reading it at the table, and it brought back everything that I remember from being in school, you know, and stuff that, you know, I had teachers say to me, you know, instances that I've had just by me being me, you know, and it was just like, it was all there. And just, I'm glad that Dominique, you know, she allowed me to be in her play.
I'm glad you were.
Thank you.
You brought something really remarkable to that role, and as did all of you. You play a family. It's clear from spending a little time with you today that you are still a family a year after this show is closed. And I'm really excited. Everyone's going to get a chance to see it on Broadway HD.
Me too.
Before we wrap up, we've got a couple of questions from audience members.
Hi. You guys touched upon this a little bit, but I was just curious, like, what is the sentiment going into a performance of the show that you guys know is going to be recorded? And just like, how is there any sort of like difference within like how you guys are feeling, or is that just where you're supposed to let, you know, your training take over?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's a little bit different when you know there's going to be a camera right up in your face. You know, there's slight self-consciousness about that. But for the most part, at the time that we were doing Pipeline, we had done it so much. And the most important integer of doing any really important theater work is staying connected to your scene partner. So oftentimes I lost track of what the camera was doing or where the audience was because I was just so focused on my fellow actor, which was my lifeline in every moment. So that was my experience.
Yeah, and once you got used to where the sight lines were and the cameras, you were just like, okay, there's a camera here. I can't, if I'm used to looking here, I have to look there, you know. And I think they cut off the stage a little bit at one time so we couldn't cross, you know, down stage all the way. We had to figure out another track, you know, just, you know. So yeah, it was after, and like you say, once you're in it, you're just like, all right, whatever. You know, let me just let it live. I can't think about the cameras anymore and just live in it, yeah.
Are you aware of that moment where the tear comes that you're like, yes, I got it?
I drop that tear every night, darling.
I'm not surprised.
Wasn't hard.
Did you have any differences in process knowing the cameras were going to be there?
It was a little tricky for me because that was the first time that I've ever had anything like that go on with the show that I was doing. But I listened to Morocco, and he was just like, just do the show. Just do the show. So that's what I did, you know. I just tried to forget about the cameras and all that stuff and just connect to everybody, you know, like I did, you know, for X amount of shows already. So
One great part about doing this with Live at Lincoln Center is their goal was to really capture the theatrical experience. Do you know? So they really wanted us to maintain what we had already done and try not to really shift anything very much because they wanted to bring that show to the world, which is in fact what we're doing.
Right. It's different than if they said, we're going to make a movie.
Yeah, we're going to do something different now. They're like, we want to actually recreate the experience of being in the Mitzi Newhouse in Lincoln Center for all those people that can't come to New York City and be there and have that experience. That's something that they are committed to. They do it a lot live at Lincoln Center. So, you know, it's great.
Or for those people like me who are there all the time and still want to watch it again from the comfort of my own home.
Exactly.
We have time for one more question.
Hi. I have an online question from Sam. And so, Namir, you were speaking about how the play was therapeutic for you. I was wondering, or Sam was wondering, for Morocco and Karen, how was the play therapeutic for you guys?
Well, like I said, both my parents were teachers. They are now passed away. So oftentimes before I would go on stage, I meditate. I go into a meditative state, try to rid myself of myself and sit in the seat of the character, right? And the great gift of doing this play was that I could visit with the spirits, if it doesn't sound too Oprah-ish, I could visit with the spirits and the memories of my mom and dad. So it was a great gift to me to sit backstage and sort of connect with seeing them come through the door at the end of the day and watching them leave in the morning and go to work and talk about the kids that they were serving and working with and teaching. And so it was therapeutic for me in that way. I haven't had that experience with another play that I've done, and it's part of the reason even why I took the part. I thought, look, I've got something to give to it now because both of my parents has passed away, and I feel like this role can be a great tribute to the playwright's mother, but also to the legacy of my parents as well.
For me, like, it was like I was playing my father, and I had that situation with him where he grabbed me up, and it was like, yo. So every night I had to grab this brother, and I was like, yo, this is my father right here. This is you know, and at that 15, 16, you know, you got all these, you're going through puberty, you got all these emotions, you can't really verbalize what you want to say and how to express yourself. And, you know, so, and my father was just a hard dude. He was just like, you know, yes is yes, no is no. You should get an A in English. You've been speaking it all your life. That's the kind of dude he was. So for me, as a father, I try to be more understanding, you know, with my daughters. And it's one of those things where we as parents have to understand when we were 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and that we didn't have we didn't know how to express, or there wasn't this safe haven with our parents where we could just be like, this is who I am and this is what's going on. You know, and as men, we kind of like let it bottle up and then we implode You know, so that's what he was doing. We're not as expressive as women most times, I guess, if I could speak for the male
Yeah, no,
race.
that might be right.
But we have a tendency to implode, you know, because we don't, you know, because we're taught, especially in the African American community, to be, you know, you better
Stoic.
be strong, you
Yeah,
better be
stoic.
tough, don't cry, you got to be tough, you know. So I grew up like that, you know, and I remember my father. I remember these conversations with my father, and that's pretty much what it was. I went and stayed with my father during high school, and we butted heads a lot, you know. But now we're great. We're great now, and I understand them more, you know.
There were nights where there's a scene where Rock grabs Namir's shirt, and there were nights where that shirt was torn.
Yeah. Button popped off.
Button popping off, getting Namir a new shirt because, you know.
And Namir was a
very
fantastic actor, making that button pop off and tearing that shirt. He was great.
Did you have to do a fight call for that? It's pretty. I mean, it's not.
No fight
It's
call.
not punching, and you know, it's nothing like that. But it is. It's so tense and fraught and active.
Some nights it was very intense,
I had
emotionally
a
intense.
clause in my contract, no fight.
No fight calls. Did your father come and see the show?
No. He lives in Cincinnati. He didn't make it up, but he'll probably see it on.
Broadway HD, streaming at 1 p.m. It's Untitled Time.
Basically, by the time it's going to be streaming on Broadway HD in a matter of moments, and as far as I know, it will be available in perpetuity. Let's hope.
Worldwide.
So everyone go to Broadway HD, which is an incredible service that offers the opportunity to see Broadway and off-Broadway theatrical experiences live from your home, or not live, but from your home as they were performed in the theaters. And it's really a gift. And this play, it just could not come at a better moment. It's one of these pieces of art that is incredibly specific, and through that specificity becomes universal.
That's right.
And I am thrilled to have had the chance to get to know about it and about all of you today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
for having us.
you.